The text message arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Family group chat. 17 members. My mother's announcement. Family dinner this Saturday at 6 p.m. Everyone please come. We have exciting news about Jessica's promotion. Jessica. My older sister. The golden child. The one who did everything right. I stared at my phone in the back of an Uber heading to a board meeting. My assistant had scheduled it weeks ago. Couldn't miss it. I typed back, can't make it. Work commitment. The responses came immediately. Jessica, of course you can't. What could possibly be more important than family? Mom, Sarah, this is Jessica's big moment. Surely your little job can wait. My brother Derek, I'm rearranging my entire schedule. You can't do the same. Dad, very disappointed in you, Sarah. I put my phone in my bag. I'd learned years ago that explaining was pointless. They'd made up their minds about me a long time ago. The Saturday dinner happened without me. I spent that evening reviewing Q3 projections with my CFO. LifeBridge Systems was about to close our Series D funding round. $340 million. Valuation climbing to $1.8 billion. We were 3 months from launching our breakthrough cardiac monitoring system that would revolutionize post-surgical care. But my family didn't know any of that. To them, I worked in healthcare tech. Whatever that meant. It started when I was 23. Fresh out of MIT with degrees in biomedical engineering and computer science. I'd been recruited by 6 companies. Offers ranging from $180,000 to $240,000. Instead, I chose a small medical device startup in San Francisco. Salary, $75,000. Equity, 2%. My family was horrified. You're throwing away your education, Dad said at Sunday dinner. He was a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. Made $140,000 a year. Thought, respectable. Safe. MIT graduates don't work at startups, Mom added. She taught high school chemistry. Between them they made about $210,000. They owned their home. Had retirement accounts. Did everything by the book. Jessica had graduated from Penn State 2 years earlier with a business degree. She'd landed a job as an associate product manager at a mid-sized medical supply distributor. Started at $68,000. By the time I graduated, she was making $82,000 as a senior associate. Your sister has benefits, Mom reminded me constantly. Health insurance. 401k matching. Paid time off. What do you have? I had equity in a company no one had heard of. Stock options that might be worthless. 16-hour days in a warehouse converted into office space. Ramen for dinner 4 nights a week. But I believed in what we were building. Dr. Chen, our founder, had lost his wife to a postoperative complication that should have been detected earlier. He'd spent 8 years developing a wireless monitoring system that could predict cardiac events before they became critical. The technology was brilliant. The execution was chaotic. But we were onto something real. 3 years later, that startup was acquired by a larger medical device company for $180 million. My 2% became $3.6 million after taxes. I was 26 years old. I didn't tell my family about the acquisition. They knew I'd changed jobs, but assumed it was just another lateral move in my unstable career path. Jessica had just been promoted to product manager. Salary, $95,000. Mom threw her a party. Invited 37 relatives. I used my acquisition money to start LifeBridge Systems with 2 former colleagues. We'd identified a massive gap in remote patient monitoring. Hospitals were losing patients to preventable complications because continuous monitoring ended when patients went home. We built an AI-powered system that could detect subtle changes in cardiac rhythm, blood pressure, and oxygen levels. Our algorithms could predict heart attacks, strokes, and pulmonary embolisms an average of 47 hours before traditional symptoms appeared. We started in my apartment. 3 founders, sleeping 4 hours a night, living on pizza and ambition. 2 years later we had FDA approval for our first device. 4 years later we had contracts with 147 hospitals across 18 states. 6 years later we had 412 employees, $180 million in annual revenue, and venture capital firms fighting to invest in our Series D round. But at family dinners when someone asked what I did, I said, I work in healthcare tech. And my family nodded politely and changed the subject to something more interesting. Like Derek's new title as operations manager at a logistics company. Or Jessica's latest achievement, senior product manager. Salary, $118,000. The dinner I missed turned out to be exactly what I expected. My cousin Rachel sent me photos afterward. Jessica standing in my parents' living room, holding a champagne glass, making an announcement. She'd been promoted to Director of Product Strategy. Salary, $142,000. First time anyone in our immediate family had broken $140,000. We're so proud of you, Mom said in the photo, arm around Jessica's shoulders. Dad raised his glass. To our successful daughter. Derek posted on Instagram, sister crushing it in the corporate world. Some of us are out here making it happen. The caption felt pointed. I liked the post and moved on. 3 weeks later, another family dinner. This time I could attend. Sunday at 5 p.m. I arrived 15 minutes late because a crisis call with our lead investor ran long. We were finalizing terms for the Series D. I'd spent 90 minutes on Zoom negotiating valuation. I walked into my parents' house wearing jeans and a sweater. Jessica was in business casual. Blazer. Pressed pants. She looked like she'd come from the office, even though it was Sunday. Nice of you to show up, she said when I walked into the kitchen. Traffic was bad, I lied. From where? Don't you work from home? I had a meeting. On Sunday. She raised her eyebrows. Must be important. Mom called us to the table. Pot roast. Mashed potatoes. The same meal she'd been making for 23 years. We sat. Dad said grace. We ate. So, Sarah, Derek said after 10 minutes of small talk. What exactly do you do? Like day to day? I'd been asked this question 17 times over the years. My answer was always the same. I work on medical monitoring systems. Software and hardware integration. Patient data analysis. That sounds very technical, Mom said in a tone that meant she had no idea what I was talking about and didn't care to learn. It is, I said. Do you manage anyone? Derek asked. I managed 412 employees. I had 7 direct reports, including our CTO, CFO, and VP of Clinical Operations. A few people, I said. A few. Jessica laughed. That's adorable. I manage 15 people now. Full P&L responsibility. $47 million budget. It's intense. That's impressive, I said. And I meant it. Jessica was good at her job. She worked hard. She'd earned her success. What's your budget? Derek asked me. I don't really work with budgets, I said. Which was technically true. I didn't work with budgets. I approved them. Our operating budget for the year was $96 million. So you're more of a technical person, Dad said. Not really management track. Something like that, I said. Jessica sipped her wine. There's nothing wrong with being an individual contributor, Sarah. Not everyone can handle leadership responsibilities. I cut my pot roast and said nothing. How much are you making these days? Derek asked. If you don't mind me asking. I did mind. But the question hung in the air. Enough, I said. She probably makes, what, 90? 100. Jessica guessed. Tech jobs pay well, but without management responsibility, there's a ceiling. I'm comfortable, I said. My salary was $285,000. Plus equity. Plus bonuses. My net worth was approximately $47 million between my acquisition windfall, my LifeBridge equity, and investments. But they didn't ask for details. And I didn't offer them. Well, I'm just proud that someone in this family finally broke into 6 figures, Mom said, beaming at Jessica. Your father and I never managed that, even with both our salaries combined. It's a huge milestone, Dad agreed. Director level at 32. That's exceptional. Jessica smiled. I've worked really hard. It shows, I said quietly. After dinner we moved to the living room. Coffee and pie. Mom brought out photo albums. Pictures of Jessica's college graduation. Her first apartment. Her promotion celebration last month. Do you have any pictures from work, Sarah? Mom asked. What's your office like? It's nice, I said. Pretty standard tech office. Open floor plan? Derek asked. I've heard tech companies do that. Sounds distracting. We have a mix, I said. Private offices for senior people. Collaborative spaces for teams. Do you have your own office? Jessica asked. I do. That's surprising for someone without direct reports, she said. Must be nice. I had a corner office on the 8th floor of our building in downtown San Francisco. Floor-to-ceiling windows. View of the bay. My name on the door. And on the building directory. Sarah Chin, CEO and co-founder. But they didn't ask. And I didn't tell them. The invitation arrived 6 weeks later. Medical Technology Innovation Summit. Boston Convention Center. March 15th to 17th. 3 days of keynotes, panels and networking. The premier event for healthcare technology executives. My assistant forwarded it to me. You're scheduled for the opening keynote on March 16th at 9 a.m. They're expecting 2,000 attendees. I'd spoken at MCAS twice before. Once as a panelist 4 years ago. Once as a keynote 3 years ago. This year they wanted me to deliver the opening address for the entire conference. The theme, Revolutionizing Patient Care Through Predictive Technology. My speech was already written. 45 minutes on how LifeBridge systems had reduced post-operative mortality rates by 34% in hospitals using our monitoring systems. How our AI had saved 2,847 lives in the past 18 months. How we were expanding into home care, rehabilitation facilities and nursing homes. I confirmed my attendance. 2 weeks before the conference, another family group chat message. Jessica, guess what? My company is sending me to MTIS in Boston. All expenses paid. This is huge for my career. Mom, that's wonderful. What's MTIS? Jessica. Medical Technology Innovation Summit. Only the most important healthcare tech conference in the country. Major executives, industry leaders, product launches. I'm going as part of our business development team to explore new vendor partnerships. Derek, fancy. Will you meet anyone famous? Jessica, probably. Last year the keynote speaker was from Medtronic. This year I heard it's someone from a billion-dollar startup. These people are on another level. My phone buzzed in my hand. I stared at the messages. Jessica was going to MTIS. She'd be in the audience. For my keynote. I could have told her right then. Could have said, that's my conference. I'm speaking there. Instead I typed, have fun. Sounds like a great opportunity. Jessica, thanks. At least someone in this family is happy for me. Sarah didn't even respond. I looked at my previous message. Sent 3 seconds earlier. I put my phone down and went back to work. March 16th arrived cold and gray. I flew into Boston the night before. Stayed at the conference hotel. The Westin waterfront. My room was on the 18th floor. Harbor view. The conference organizers had sent a gift basket. Chocolate. Wine. A handwritten note. Thank you for inspiring our industry. I ordered room service and reviewed my presentation one last time. 2,000 people. Including my sister. I thought about texting her. Meeting for coffee. Explaining before she found out in front of everyone. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the years of healthcare tech isn't real comments. Maybe it was the constant comparison to her real career. Maybe it was the assumption that I was a mid-level technical worker with no management experience and a salary cap of $100,000. Or maybe I was just tired of explaining myself to people who had already decided who I was. I went to sleep at 11 p.m. Woke at 6 a.m. Shower. Hair. Makeup. I put on a navy suit. Expensive. Tailored. The kind you wear when you're about to walk on stage in front of 2,000 people and tell them how your company is changing medicine. At 7:30 a.m. I went downstairs to the conference level. The main ballroom was massive. Rows of chairs stretching back into shadows. A stage with a 20-foot screen. Cameras. Lighting rigs. The setup crew was doing final checks. Miss Chin. The conference director rushed over. We're so excited. Your prep room is ready. Can we get you anything? Water. I'm fine, I said. We'll start seating at 8:15. Your introduction begins at 8:58. You'll take the stage at 9 o'clock. Sound good? Perfect. I went to the prep room. Private space backstage. Leather couch. Coffee station. A TV monitor showing the ballroom as it filled. At 8:20 people started entering. Hundreds of them. Conference badges hanging from lanyards. Suits and business casual. They took their seats. Chatted. Checked their phones. At 8:35 I saw her. Row 7. Seat 12. Jessica. Wearing a burgundy dress and blazer. Hair perfectly styled. She was with 4 colleagues. All wearing matching company badges. She was laughing. Animated. Excited to be there. She had no idea. My assistant knocked on the door. 5 minutes, Ms. Chin. I stood. Smoothed my suit. Checked my reflection one last time. The conference director appeared. Ready. Ready. He walked me to the side stage entrance. The lights were dimming in the ballroom. The screen behind the stage showed the MTS logo. A voice came through the speakers. Good morning and welcome to the Medical Technology Innovation Summit. We have an incredible program lined up for you over the next 3 days. To open our conference, we're honored to welcome a leader who has fundamentally transformed how hospitals monitor and protect their patients. I watched the screen from backstage. My photo appeared. Professional headshot. Below it, Sarah Chin, CEO and co-founder LifeBridge Systems. After earning dual degrees from MIT in biomedical engineering and computer science, Sarah Chin co-founded LifeBridge Systems 7 years ago with a revolutionary vision. What if we could predict medical emergencies before they happened? I saw Jessica in row 7. She was looking at the screen. Then at her program. Then back at the screen. Today, LifeBridge Systems' predictive monitoring technology is used in 147 hospitals across 18 states. Their AI-powered systems have saved an estimated 2,847 lives by detecting cardiac events, strokes and pulmonary complications an average of 47 hours before traditional symptoms appear. Jessica's mouth was open. She turned to the colleague next to her. Pointed at the screen. Pointed at her program. Last month, LifeBridge Systems closed their Series D funding round with a valuation of $1.8 billion. Under Sarah's leadership, the company has grown to over 400 employees and $180 million in annual revenue. She's been named to Forbes 30 Under 30 Fortune's Most Innovative Leaders and the Healthcare Technology Excellence Award. The colleague Jessica was talking to pulled out their phone. Started typing. Probably Googling my name. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Sarah Chin, CEO of LifeBridge Systems. The applause started. I walked out. The lights were bright. The audience was a mass of faces. The camera flashes made it hard to see individual people. But I could see row 7. Jessica was standing. Everyone was standing. 2,000 people on their feet. Applauding. Jessica's face was white. Absolutely colorless. Her mouth was still open. Her hands were frozen mid-clap. I reached the podium. The applause continued. 30 seconds. 45 seconds. I smiled. Nodded. Raised my hand in a small wave. Finally the room settled. People sat. I looked at row 7. Jessica sat slowly. Mechanically. Like someone had pushed her down. I began my speech. 7 years ago my co-founders and I were sitting in my apartment in San Francisco, eating our 4th pizza of the week, talking about a problem that kept us up at night. I spoke for 43 minutes. I told them about Dr. Chin losing his wife. About the preventable complications that kill 7,000 Americans every year. About the wireless sensors we developed that could detect microchanges in heart rhythm. About the machine learning algorithms that could analyze 10,000 data points per second and identify patterns invisible to human doctors. I showed them data. Graphs. Statistics. Hospitals using LifeBridge Systems saw postoperative mortality drop by 34%. Readmission rates fell by 28%. Patient satisfaction scores increased by 41%. I told them about Maria Rodriguez, a 67-year-old grandmother in Phoenix who'd had routine gallbladder surgery. Our system detected an irregular heartbeat 41 hours before she would have had a massive stroke. The hospital intervened. She went home 3 days later and got to meet her first great-grandchild. I told them about James Patterson, a 54-year-old high school teacher in Michigan who'd had knee replacement surgery. Our system caught a developing pulmonary embolism 38 hours early. Treatment was simple. The alternative would have been fatal. 2,847 stories like that. 2,847 lives. The audience was silent. Listening. I wrapped up my speech with our vision for the future. Expanding into home care, rehabilitation facilities, nursing homes. Bringing this technology to patients everywhere, not just in hospitals. We started LifeBridge Systems because we believed one simple thing. Technology should serve humanity. Data should save lives. And innovation should be measured not in dollars, but in the number of people who get to go home to their families. I paused. Thank you. The applause was immediate. Thunderous. Everyone stood again. I looked at row 7. Jessica was standing. But she wasn't clapping. She was just staring at me. Her colleagues were clapping. Enthusiastically. The woman next to her leaned over and said something. Jessica nodded but didn't respond. The conference director returned to the stage. Thank you, Sarah. We have time for a few questions. Hands shot up across the ballroom. 20 minutes of Q&A. Questions about our technology, our funding, our expansion plans, our partnership strategy. A woman in row 12 stood. Ms. Chen, your company is clearly positioned for significant growth. Are you considering an IPO? We're exploring all options, I said carefully. Our focus right now is on delivering value to patients and healthcare providers. When the time is right for an IPO, we'll make that decision based on what serves our mission best. More questions. More answers. Finally, the conference director wrapped up. Let's give Sarah Chen one more round of applause. They stood again. I waved, smiled, walked off stage. Backstage, the conference director was beaming. That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. We're already getting tweets about it. You're trending on healthcare tech Twitter. Glad it went well, I said. The networking reception is at 11. We'd love to have you there. And we're doing press interviews at 2 if you're available. I'll be at both, I said. My assistant appeared with my phone. 17 messages. 3 from my CFO about the press coverage. 2 from our VP of Communications about interview requests. 5 from investors and board members congratulating me. And 7 from my family group chat. I opened the group chat. Derek, Sarah? Derek, you're the CEO of a billion-dollar company? Mom, Sarah, is this true? Are you really the person who just spoke? Dad, we had no idea. Derek, Jessica just sent me a video. That's definitely you on stage. Mom, why didn't you tell us? Derek, this is insane. You've been sitting at our dinners letting us talk about our jobs like... Wow. There were no messages from Jessica. I put my phone away. The networking reception was in the main exhibition hall. Hundreds of people. Vendor booths. Cocktail tables. I was immediately surrounded by executives, investors, and journalists. Ms. Chen, I'm from MedTech Daily. Could we get 5 minutes? Sarah, we'd love to discuss a potential partnership with our hospital network. I've been following LifeBridge for 2 years. Your presentation was phenomenal. I worked the room, smiled, shook hands, exchanged business cards, had the same conversation 40 times. At 11:47 I saw Jessica. She was standing near the LifeBridge Systems booth. Our marketing team had set up a display. Photos of our technology. Monitors showing our interface. Testimonials from hospital administrators. She was reading one of the testimonials. I walked over. Hi, Jessica. She turned. Her face was still pale. Sarah. Her voice was flat. So, this is what you do? Yes. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company. $1.8 billion, I said. At last valuation. She blinked. And you never mentioned this. Not once. Not at any family dinner. Not when Mom asked about your job. Not when Derek asked about your budget. I did mention it, I said calmly. I told you I work in healthcare tech. You said you work in healthcare tech. Not that you run a healthcare tech company. Not that you're... She gestured at the booth. At the conference. At everything. This. You never asked, I said. Her face flushed. I never asked. Sarah, we talked about careers constantly. You sat there at dinners while we discussed our jobs. While I talked about managing 15 people and my $142,000 salary and my... She stopped. You let us think you were some mid-level technical worker. I never said that. You never corrected us. People were starting to look. I lowered my voice. Jessica, every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject. Every time someone asked what I did, you answered for me. Healthcare tech, in that dismissive tone. Like it wasn't a real job. Because I didn't know. Her voice broke. If you'd just told us. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. If I'd said, I'm the CEO of a company worth $1.8 billion, would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was exaggerating? Delusional? Trying to one-up your director promotion? She opened her mouth. Closed it. I didn't tell you, I said, because I didn't need you to know. My work speaks for itself. My company succeeds or fails based on what we build, not on whether my family understands what I do. That's not fair, she whispered. We're your family. You're right, I said. You are. And I love you. But you spent 7 years assuming the worst about my career without ever asking for details. You spent 7 years comparing your achievements to what you thought were my failures. And you never once considered that maybe I was doing okay. Her eyes were wet. I didn't mean. I know you didn't, I said gently. But it happened anyway. A man in a suit approached us. Miss Chin, I'm from Johnson & Johnson. We'd love to discuss a potential acquisition conversation. Of course, I said. I turned back to Jessica. I have to go. We can talk later if you want. She nodded. Said nothing. I walked away to discuss a potential $3 billion acquisition offer. The rest of the conference was a blur. Panels. Meetings. Interviews. Networking. I shook 200 hands. Had 150 conversations. Signed 12 NDAs for potential partnerships. Jessica and her colleagues attended several sessions. I saw them in the audience for a panel I moderated on Friday afternoon. She didn't approach me. Friday evening I flew home to San Francisco. My phone buzzed during the flight. Family group chat. Mom, Sarah, we'd like to talk. Can you come to dinner on Sunday? I stared at the message for a long time. Finally I typed, I can do Sunday at 5. Sunday dinner was uncomfortable. I arrived exactly on time. Everyone was already there. Jessica, Derek, Dad. We sat at the table. No pot roast this time. Mom had ordered Italian from the place we used to go for special occasions. So, Dad started. We've all been talking. And we owe you an apology. I said nothing. Mom continued. We had no idea what you'd accomplished. If we'd known. You would have treated me differently? I asked. Silence. That's the problem, I said quietly. My accomplishments shouldn't determine whether you respect me. Whether you take my career seriously. Whether you include me in family celebrations. We always included you, Derek protested. You uninvited me from Jessica's promotion dinner, I said. Well, you didn't technically uninvite me. You just scheduled it for a night you knew I couldn't make and then talked about how disappointed you were that I didn't prioritize family. Derek looked away. We didn't understand, Mom said. You were always so vague about work. I was exactly as detailed as you let me be, I said. Every time I mentioned a project, you changed the subject. Every time I tried to explain what we were building, you talked over me about Jessica's latest achievement. I learned to stay quiet because it was easier than fighting for airtime in conversations where no one was listening. Jessica was crying silently. I'm not saying this to hurt you, I continued. I'm saying it because it's true. You decided I was the unsuccessful one. The one who made bad career choices. The one who needed advice about stability and benefits and 401 Burmese chots. And you never questioned that narrative. We were wrong, Dad said. His voice was thick. We were completely wrong. And we're sorry. I took a breath. I appreciate that. Can we start over? Mom asked. Can you tell us about your company? Really tell us. So I did. I told them about the apartment startup days. The acquisition. The founding of LifeBridge. The FDA approval process. The first hospital contract. The growth. The challenges. The victories. I told them about the Series D round. The valuation. The expansion plans. I told them about the patients. The lives saved. The families who still sent me thank you cards. They listened. Actually listened. When I finished, Derek said quietly, I'm sorry I made that comment about managing 15 people. I'm sorry I bragged about my salary, Jessica whispered. When you were making, what are you making? More than I need, I said simply. Are you a millionaire? Dad asked. Yes. How much of a millionaire? I hesitated. Do the specifics matter? I guess not, he admitted. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Finally, Jessica spoke. My colleagues at the conference wouldn't stop talking about you. About your speech. About LifeBridge. My boss asked me 3 times if I could introduce him to you. I had to admit I didn't even know what your company did. You can introduce him, I said. If you want. Really? Of course. You're my sister. She started crying again. I was so awful to you. You weren't awful, I said. You just didn't know. I should have known. I should have asked. Yeah, I said gently. You should have. 3 months later, Jessica called me. Sarah? Do you have a minute? Sure. What's up? I'm thinking about leaving my job. I sat up straighter. Really? Why? Because I realized something at that conference. I've been so focused on climbing the ladder at one company that I haven't thought about whether it's the right ladder. Whether it's leading somewhere I actually want to go. Where do you want to go? I don't know yet, she admitted. But I want to figure it out. And I want to do it without comparing myself to you or Derek or anyone else. I want to build something that matters to me. That's really brave, I said. I learned from the best. She paused. Will you help me? Not with money or connections or anything like that. Just advice? Perspective. Of course, I said. Anytime. We talked for an hour. About her skills. Her interests. Her dreams. Things we'd never discussed before because we'd been too busy comparing instead of connecting. When we hung up, I realized something. The standing ovation at MTIS had been satisfying. The validation. The recognition. Watching my sister realize who I was. But this conversation mattered more. Not because she finally respected my success. But because we were finally talking to each other as people, not as competitors. 6 months after MTIS, LifeBridge Systems announced our Series E round. $500 million. Valuation $3.2 billion. The press release went out on a Tuesday morning. Within an hour my phone buzzed. Family group chat. Mom, we saw the news. Congratulations. Dad, so proud of you, honey. Derek, holiest asterisk T Sarah. $3.2 billion. And then Jessica, not surprised at all. You're amazing. Red heart. I smiled and replied, thanks everyone. Excited for what's next. Because that was the thing about success. It wasn't about the validation. It wasn't about proving people wrong. It wasn't about standing ovations or press releases or valuations. It was about building something that mattered. Saving lives. Creating jobs. Pushing technology forward. The rest was just noise. My family understood that now. Finally. And that made all the difference. 2 years later, LifeBridge Systems went public. IPO day. Nasdaq. Opening bell at $42 per share. By close we were at $67. Market cap, $8.9 billion. My family flew to New York for the ceremony. Derek, Jessica. They stood on the trading floor with me. Wore LifeBridge t-shirts. Smiled for the cameras. When I rang the bell, they cheered louder than anyone. Afterward, we went to dinner at a restaurant in Tribeca. Expensive. Celebratory. The kind of place we never went when I was growing up. This is incredible, Mom said, looking around. I can't believe this is our life now. It's not your life, I said gently. It's mine. You're welcome to visit it. But it's mine. She blinked. Then nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. I meant I'm proud to see you achieving your dreams. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. Jessica raised her glass. To Sarah, who never needed us to believe in her, but I'm glad we finally do. To Sarah, everyone echoed. We clinked glasses. I looked around the table at my family. Imperfect. Complicated. But mine. To second chances, I said quietly. We drank. And for the first time in years I felt like we were finally on the same page. Not because they understood what I did. Not because they respected my success. But because they'd learned to ask questions instead of making assumptions. That was enough. That was everything.